Okay, testing. Hello. Guys, welcome to Summer in Seoul. It's an incredibly hot day. My energy has been zapped. I just took a little nap. I don't know what's going on. So I'm so happy to just sit down and chat with you guys. Originally, I was thinking of just making this in a vlog format, but then I asked on Instagram if anybody had any questions, like Gen Z questions for millennials. Millennials have questions like, hey guys, does anyone else remember this? And I got such interesting feedback. We're still gonna have a vloggy format, but I'm gonna try and sit down and respond to some of these questions a bit more while we're doing our early 2000s activities. First and foremost being the thing that I'm so excited to do, scrapbooks, baby. I printed out pictures from the trip and I want to put them in a photo book, and I'm very excited about it. While we do that, we're gonna chat, but then I'm also going to return to some of my TV shows. But I know that that's cheating because we don't have streaming services. In the 2000s, I grew up still having to order DVDs through the mail from Netflix when Netflix first launched. But you can't say that you are living like the early 2000s and not sit down and watch a Disney Channel original movie. So that is what I'm going to be doing. But of course, for that, I have to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Surfshark VPN. You know and love them. A VPN is a virtual private network. So I grew up having to take internet safety classes. Now you have Surfshark VPN that can help keep you a lot safer than anything I learned in those classes 10-15 years ago. Surfshark VPN can help you protect yourself in terms of if you're using public Wi-Fi. It can alert you if you have any kind of malware going on, but also it helps you just access the internet differently. So I always use it to change my IP address if I need to access like a US government site that doesn't let me access it when I'm abroad, or accessing different Netflix or Disney Plus and things like that, media libraries. It's just a good tool to use if you are online often, and you can use it across all different devices. You can share it with a lot of different people. It's a really important thing to have in this digital age. So I will have a link in the description box that you can use. You can go to surfshark.com/caricakes and you can get up to 4 months extra of Surfshark VPN. I highly recommend it. You should generally be using it all the time if you can. And thank you always to Surfshark, especially for letting me access a bunch of Disney Channel original movies that I'm going to be binging this week. Information will be down below as always. Thank you so much. But let's dive in to the questions. Let me set the scene. I was born December 31st, 1991, the last day of 91. I didn't get a cell phone until I was, I think, 13. And even then, the only reason I got it was because I had after school activities and our bus was really unreliable. So sometimes like we just didn't have a bus home and I had no way to contact, it was after school. So like the offices were closed. I had no way to contact my mom to be like, I'm not gonna come home, right? So that's why I got a phone. It was like a little Nokia. Someone said, do you remember your phone that could only play Snake? And yes, I didn't get on Instagram until I was a sophomore in college. And even MySpace, I think I'll go into it later. Social media didn't feel like it does now. We had a family computer. I got a laptop, I think my senior year of high school, to help me with, college applications. And I had to, at that point, you kind of started to need to be more online. That's my life. So one of the main questions I got, which I thought was so funny, the main question was simply, what the fuck did you do all day? I was trying to come up with some really deep answer about like our imagination and how, we just really had to look for opportunities for fun. And then the next response was, hey millennials, do you remember laying on the ground in your house and seeing what shapes you could see on the ceiling? And we definitely did that. There was a lot of staring at walls and being bored, and I think I've talked about it before, but I feel like that's so important and I kind of miss it, especially when I enjoy creative writing. What creative thoughts come to you when your brain is just very still? I feel like nowadays, if I'm feeling bored, I'll get on the internet in some way, whether it's, social media or YouTube or whatever. I don't think that's really helping me creatively. But yeah, we did a lot of waiting around. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of listening to music and just listening to music and sitting in my room. Or I would dance a lot. I would spend a lot of time in my room just making up scenarios. I actually got a response. I'll try and find them and put them up on here. But somebody also was like, does anyone remember pretending to host TV shows? Yes. You would absolutely talk to yourself and pretend that you had a cooking show or you were on a TV show or something like that. Editing Carrie, hi. This is a question that is linked to like, what the hell did you do all day? Somebody asked, did teenage boys regularly actually just start bands in their garage? And the answer is yes. There were like the certain boys that were constantly restarting bands in their garages. And we had in our area, they weren't at my school, they were at the school next to me, but we had a band called Radio Racer, and they were actually really good. And I'm gonna leave one of their music videos down below. So good. So we were blessed with, not only did we have a bunch of boys making bands in their garage, but we had a good band. But yeah, the whole garage band thing absolutely was a thing, and I hope it still is. So let me know. So yeah, we just did a lot of make-believe, I think. We did. I remember you would just show up kind of unannounced at your friend's house. Like I had a girl who lived down the street from me, and if I was really bored, because I hated talking on the phone, so I wasn't going to call and risk having her mom pick up or her brother, and then I would have to awkwardly talk to her mom or her brother. No, I would ride my bike around the neighborhood and hope that she was outside. But I would just hope like, oh, maybe she's outside and I can ask if she wants to play. Like that's what we did. You just kind of were around. But I think that this question kind of blends into another question that a lot of people were asking. And it was simply about like friendship. How did you stay connected with your friends, and how did you talk when there wasn't social media or you didn't have phones or things like that? I think a part of this is also like we were kids. So we were in school together and together constantly. So I feel like physically closer to my friends when I was younger compared to now. But I do think that you had to be kind of a more proactive friend. Like you had to be more involved in your friends' lives. Like nowadays, so many of my friends, like I know what's going on with their lives because they share what's happening on their story or on their Instagram. It's not the same as having a conversation about it or them, you know, reaching out to you about it or something like that. Now we can just kind of be observers of our friends' lives instead of active participants. I feel like social media connects us 24/7, but there's also this kind of keeping people at an arm's length. Again, with kind of the awkwardness, like having to tell your friends things face to face, you know? I feel like nowadays people feel a lot more comfortable talking over text or over, you know, these like vague stories or posts or whatever. I also think that made you spend more time on friendship. Like I would have to tell people that I, for example, didn't make the tennis team. You'd call somebody and you'd have a long conversation about it versus now you could just kind of send a story and be like, listen, don't talk to me. I didn't make the tennis team. Social media in a weird way makes friendship faster and more efficient. Not friendship, but communication. It would take time to spread information. Anyway, ignore me. My friend Casey, hi Casey, responded and was like, remember before school when we would just stand in a circle and talk because we didn't have phones? Because again, we didn't have phones. We can't be like, I'll meet you here. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm here. Where are you? Like none of that. Every morning before school, we would just be standing in the quad. Our friend group had 2 very distinct hair colors. So it was me. I have like a neon sign on my head. So you could very easily find me in the crowd. Or my other friend, Casey, not to be confused with the Casey who asked this question, had beautiful, curly blonde hair. And so she was my point of reference. Like if I was looking for where our group was, I was like, just gotta find Casey's beautiful head. Every once in a while, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, enough to put me in a panic, Casey would straighten her hair. And I could not for the life of me find her and find our friend group, and I would just kind of be awkwardly standing in the quad until I finally found our group of friends. It wasn't fun to feel awkward, but I feel like we could withstand a lot more awkwardness. You got through it. Like I feel like nowadays, even the tiniest thing will cause people to freak out and be like, I'm so uncomfortable, I have to leave. When it's like, babe, you don't even know. You don't even know. Imagine walking into an entire auditorium. Oh my God, a football game where the entire school is there. Everybody's on the bleachers and you just have to kind of stand there and look for your friends. Oh my God. But yeah, I do think that you had to be a more active participant in your friends' lives. And I really want to get back into that, which is why it's so nice to be able to print out pictures of my friends and put them in this little photo album. But sorry that was a ramble. I'm gonna have actual questions that I'm gonna answer in the next section because you asked actually really interesting questions about like social pressures, trends, fandom interactions, things like that I want to get into, but I just wanted to kind of say hello. Leave any questions, like if you have any thoughts on the things that I just said, let me know down below because it was all my responses that I got were really interesting on Instagram and I feel like people want to talk about it. So yeah, regardless of what generation you feel you are a part of, let me know, especially about friendships. I really wonder because I'm not a young person with young friends right now. So like, I'd love to hear like, what do you guys do all day? Like, I can't imagine you guys are just online all day. Like, are you sitting in front of a computer or your phone all day? Like, I just can't imagine that. Like, that's, yeah. So tables turned, Gen Z, what do you do all day, right? As a teen. Now to pick my movie.
숨차는지도 다 알아 넌 나 없이 주말엔 뭐 할지 궁금해 사실은 그냥 있었으면 해 너의 방
Okay, good morning to you. It's starting to rain, wearing all white. Did not think about this. Didn't check my phone this morning. How did we used to know what the weather was? Today we are at the most wonderful place in the world, the library, and I wanted to talk kind of about trends. I'm going to talk about it a little more once we get in there, but I had some questions about just like how did we get information before we all had phones? And I was thinking about this on the bus ride over here because I wasn't on my phone. I was thinking of just how quickly we adapt to things. So like when I was talking about even with like maps of how to get here, I used to print out like MapQuest, or we used to write down like take a left here, second left here, and that's how we used to do it. And I have pretty good short-term memory, so like I would just remember the direction. I feel like now it's so much more difficult for me to get to places, like to remember things without my phone. Or I was thinking even my parents, like because we adapt so quickly, even though my parents grew up with those car maps that were like a thick binder, I can't even describe them. I feel like if I handed that to my mom and had her plan a road trip or like direct us somewhere, she would struggle. No offense, Mom. But like we're so used to using our phones in this way. And so yeah, I think like everything that I'm saying, even when it's like, you know, contacting your friends or going to the library to do research, things like that, I feel like I'm with you. Like we all adapt to the world that we're living in right now. And so even though I'm like, oh yeah, you know, when I was a kid, we went to the library and we hand wrote our essays. Like I couldn't do that now. I am fully with you. I just have the memories, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's go inside. So guess who forgot that the library is closed on Mondays? I cannot believe. Also, I need to buy My Chemical Romance tickets in a second, so I am not living in the 2000s. I am in a way. Still a My Chemical Romance fan since 2005, but I do need technology to fight these fans for tickets. I cannot believe the library is closed on Mondays. How did I forget? Well, anyway, I have things to chat about, so it's fine. Well, speaking of My Chemical Romance, actually, a really good question I got was about fandom interactions. Like, if you read a book and you wanted to fangirl with people, how did you do it? It may sound dumb, but like, how did you guys keep up with updates for your favorite band? How slow were trends? How long did they stick around? So yeah, how did we keep up with these things? I think a lot of it was TV and magazine based. So obviously things spread a lot slower, like especially fashion, things like that. It would usually come from TV or movies, and then magazines. I think that tabloids were a lot bigger. I was never really into that. Like, I was actually kind of in a pop culture bubble a little bit because I was an only child. I pretty much just listened to and watched what my parents liked growing up. So that's why I listened to a lot of like older music. I wasn't super tuned in. MTV, I think, like, again, just TV was how we really got the trends. It also felt like there weren't as many things going on. Like, you wouldn't get, I mean, famously with K-pop, for example, like, I think when I started listening to K-pop in, what was it, like 2005, 2006, I think it was like 10 bands debuted, like 10 groups debuted, but in 2020, 100 bands debuted. So really, we just had less stuff happening as well. This was also kind of related, but somebody asked me, like, how did you look things up? If like you had a question, you know how when we're thinking like, oh, I forget that guy's name, like what that movie was. Honestly, I wrote in my notes, like, I just don't think it was that important. Like, you would think about it later. If it was really important, you would look it up later, you'd write it down, or you would just always wonder. Like, there was a movie, and I want to kind of make like a Reels series about all the movies from my childhood that gave me nightmares. And there was this one movie that I thought for the longest time was just a dream that I had. I literally thought it was a nightmare. Then one day, once I had the internet, I Googled it, like all these random things, like badgers, poison, forest creatures, and wouldn't you know it, if you know what I'm talking about, Once Upon a Forest, nightmare of a movie, is real. So yeah, I feel like we just kind of were okay with not having information at our fingertips. Like, things just weren't that big of a deal. I remember having to memorize song lyrics, like before Shazam. I would listen really carefully to a song on the radio and try to remember enough of the lyrics that I could go home and Google them later. I still kind of do that nowadays. I like constantly forget I have Shazam, and I'm like frantically trying to memorize songs, and I can't understand a damn thing that people sing anymore. So it's kind of rough. In terms of like food and stuff, I feel like we didn't really have food trends. That's such a lie. We did have food trends, but it was all from TV. And you know what it was from? Oh my God, this is all happening in my brain at once. We didn't just have TV, we had commercials. We had commercial breaks. And so like a lot of times when we were watching TV, like you'd use that to run to the bathroom. But yeah, we had commercials. And so we had advertisements that you couldn't skip them unless you like got up and walked away and did something else. But so yeah, someone was like, does anyone remember that purple ketchup? And yes, we had a lot of weird condiments. Like, we discovered food dye, and we were like, why don't we make ketchup purple? Why don't we make this green? And so yeah, we would have like those kind of weird trending new snacks, and you would find them through commercials. That's so right. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, so it was really, really TV based. And now that we kind of aren't watching TV, or we're watching TV so differently, it's hard to imagine. But yeah, like style and all these things, I actually wrote down, it was honestly, in terms of trends for clothes, I feel like it was kind of like that Devil Wears Prada scene where she's like, oh, like, you don't think this is about you? That's kind of how it was. Like, you would see stuff in magazines, and then slowly it would trickle down to be in like Walmart or TJ Maxx or like wherever you shopped. Like, they would make the knockoff versions for like the, normies. It was very slow moving, and we didn't shop online. Imagine that. Like, we didn't have any online shopping. And so really, like, back to school shopping was that was when you shopped for the whole year. Like, you would buy your notebooks, your pens, your backpack, whatever. And then you would buy, like, if you grew, as we're kids, we grow faster. So like, you'd buy new clothes. You shopped like once. And so yeah, just imagine not having any online shopping. You had to go to a store and do like a quick run for things. So trends had to be slow. In terms of how did you discover new music and movies and books, again, there was just less stuff. It was all very word of mouth. My mom would get a lot of stuff from like the newspaper, like book reviews from like print media, so like in the newspapers or in magazines and things like that. Music as well, like music critics were a really big thing. Also just browsing, like going to Best Buy or going to like a CD shop and browsing, finding new artists. I really loved, there were a lot of websites, like the birth of the internet really gave us a lot of cool websites to find things organically. So rest in peace, Pure Volume. And so it's kind of crazy now that with Spotify, with like almost every song ever at my fingertips, I struggle to find new music because we had to work harder to find things. I feel like we really tried to discover things versus now that it's so easy. I'm just like, oh, Spotify,
by just make me my Discover Weekly playlist, you know? Yeah, I really think we had to care more. And I think that kind of leads into fandoms, which is you had to be a more active participant, kind of like with friendship in fandoms. You had to physically go to meetups, or you had to talk out loud about what you like. I think band t-shirts really helped. In high school, I remember I wore an Under Oath t-shirt, and this guy who I'd never talked to before, he was like a new kid, came up to me, and he looked like I was his savior, because he was like, I haven't made any friends. I didn't know anyone in this school, and I saw your shirt and I knew we could be friends. Yeah, I feel like you just had to, like, stickers, or like you had to carry stuff around, which I know that you still do now. Like I love seeing people with their K-pop photo cards and stuff, like clearly marking themselves as a fan. But yeah, I think you had to be a little bit louder and prouder about what you liked so that you could find your people. We were in the very early age of forums, so you could technically talk on a forum with people, but again, you likely didn't have your own computer, so you'd have to do it either like sneakily at school if you were in a computer class, or you would have to get online on your family's computer or something. So again, you like had to work for it. So yeah, that's sort of how fandoms work. And then really quickly, I have 5 minutes before I need to buy my tickets, kind of about like how information spreads. I feel like I need to talk about this forever, but really quickly, I'd love to talk about it more in the comments, I think would be better, is a question about, was politics as big a deal to y'all as it was to us? No. Like, it's so hard. Like, I can't express to you how in the loop Gen Z is. Like, because you have so much access to not only information, but so many different POVs. Like, we really, if we got the news, the way that we could get news or opinions on things that were happening in the world, it was usually from our parents, our teachers, or whatever news channel we watched, or like the radio and the newspaper kind of thing. So first of all, it was like once a day. And if you're looking at like the newspaper or something like that. And then it was really, really based on your parents and occasionally your peers. I really only talked about politics, I remember, like during election season, like when I was in elementary school or middle school, and I would just be like, whatever my mom said. And then 9/11 happened when I was in 4th grade. I remember it very vividly. I think anybody who was alive during that time does. And I remember that was kind of when I really started, like, I really thought of the world as just like a really wonderful place that I just want to discover and explore when I get old enough. And then 9/11, when I was 9, made me start thinking about like current events. And I was more of like a history nerd. And I think that in 4th grade, I became more aware of like current events. But yeah, politics, you could really be less plugged in. I know that there were people who were, absolutely, but it was easier to be not plugged in, like to be absolutely unaware of the things that didn't affect your day-to-day life as a kid. So yeah, I think I remember though, like my senior year, the first Obama election was when I really got into fights because California had some really crazy propositions trying to pass. And I just remember, like, I grew up with a really big Mormon community. I grew up with a really big Catholic community. So my views didn't match some of my friends. And that was the first time we had, honest to God, really talked about it. And it pulled a lot of friendships apart, actually. We were definitely less tuned in. Yeah, that's why I really do look up to Gen Z. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Okay, successfully got tickets. I'm shaking that adrenaline rush. Anyway, that is why I do really commend Gen Z. I feel like it must, like, on one hand, it's so amazing that you know everything that's going on in the world and that you care, but I also, like, can't even imagine the amount of anxiety. Like, just being a normal teen was hard enough, but also, like, being aware of all the shit that's happening in the world and being so vocal about it. You guys are truly a different breed. I don't know. Yeah, it's really, really hard to imagine. Like, you have so much information being forced upon you, even if you don't even want to know, that it's kind of difficult to understand how out of touch we could be in our day and age. But yeah, you guys, I don't know how you do it. So anyway, now I'm going to use, God, my heart is pounding. It really is properly raining. I am not prepared. I'm also not the only one who forgot that the library was closed, so that's nice. While I was trying to buy my tickets, at least 4 other people came. There's a girl still waiting on the stairs that did the TikTok trend right now of like doing the model walk and walking away. Yeah, I had a couple people do that. I'm gonna use my cute little map to try and go to a cafe over yonder. Looks like the rain shouldn't be that bad. We'll see. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on trends. Like, I think that, siblings played a really big role, but I didn't have siblings. Again, a lot of browsing, a lot of stumbling upon hidden gems, a lot of like discovering things and thinking you're the only person that knows about it. And then now that we have the internet and we can talk about it, all these millennials bonding over the trauma of 90s children's movies. Anyway, oh my God. Okay, yeah, it is raining, so I'm gonna focus and put my camera away. But yeah, let's talk about trends. How did you find things, my elderly folk? Bye. Guys, I was totally fine sitting where I was. Like, I didn't have a table, but I borrowed a chair from somebody. And the owner just runs over and he was like, I think there's a vacancy. And he brought me into this little room just for me. Air conditioning, my own record player, my decaf Americano. He's so nice. And he doesn't do it anymore because it's really crowded and busy, but he also has a camera. I'll flip you. He will like take pictures of everybody who comes in with his fancy camera. And I just think that's so funny. But I'm in this like little room all by myself. Isn't that great? Greetings. We are back home, about to begin our next millennial activity. I don't know if people still make these anymore, so this might still be a Gen Z thing, and I really hope it is. We're gonna make puppy chow. I haven't had puppy chow in a million years, and I don't know why. Box tops. That's another thing that I feel like I haven't seen in a million years. Box tops, you would collect them and turn them in and earn money for your school. Do you still do that? You should do that. Okay. But as I'm making this, hold on, I actually have to do math because I don't even want to make one. I need to half the recipe. I need to third the recipe. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah. Blah. Okay, so as we wait for the chocolate and the peanut butter to melt in my puppy chow, one question I got in many different forms was, on one hand, what is something that I wish Gen Z didn't have to experience? And also, what was it like to not be perceived? And that is what I wish Gen Z didn't have to experience, is just being so aware of yourself and yourself in comparison to others. Let me move you. I'm getting nervous listening to the water boil. Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. I mentioned in the beginning how social media felt really different than it does now. And one of the main reasons is because any form of social media that we had, you were still pretty much only friends with your friends. Like, you only shared like embarrassing photos or like anything with people who were people you knew in real life. And I think that the fact that, especially now with TikTok and the way that things go viral, you could share something so silly and literally the entire world could see it and it could get misconstrued, blah blah blah. I just don't wish that on people. I also feel like it was good for our egos, because we were able to not compare ourselves to quite as many people. Like, we saw there were like celebrities for sure, but we knew that they were different. Like, they were just celebrities. But nowadays you can see just like a normal kid dance really well on TikTok or like sing really well. And so you kind of couldn't have this dumb fantasy of being like the best. Like, I was able to sit in my room, sing totally off key, and still think like, oh, I'm a really good singer and I'm gonna get discovered, you know? I feel like Gen Z talks about being Delulu, but like, you don't even know. You don't even know. Hold on, I gotta focus on melting my chocolate. Excuse my cut on my finger. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. We actually used to do this. Oh, I should have done it the old school way. We used to do this in Ziploc baggies, and that was a good way to do it. Put it in the fridge for a sec, Okay, what did I have to say? Some people said that they remember being exposed only to their immediate circle. So they had significantly less anxieties, less insecurities. Yeah. Also, it's hard to imagine, but picture you go home from school and you do your homework, you watch TV, whatever. If you don't pick up the phone and call someone and have a voice conversation with someone, you're not contacting your friends until the next day at school. Like, so from I got out of school at 2:54, let's say I didn't have tennis that day, I would go home and I would not talk to my friends until like 7 something a.m. the next day. You were disconnected, you were offline. As much as I love being able to talk to my friends all the time, especially when now all my friends are in different time zones, there was something nice about being unreachable. I remember there was a meme or something going around of like, we could memorize phone numbers, we printed out maps. If we didn't bring our phone, no one could reach us. We were gods. And I mean, it's proven that we're not supposed to have this much feedback or this much connection. Our brains literally cannot handle thinking about this many people. We also aren't supposed to be seeing our faces as much as we are. I feel like I had a mixture. Like I definitely had insecurities. I've talked about it before with like body dysmorphia, disordered eating, but I can't even imagine what it would be like now to just like constantly be photographed, like not even seeing other people's photographs, but like being photographed. I think that we had so much negative media about especially women's bodies, like America's Next Top Model, or just like all the jokes. Like it was just, we were raised in the very skinny time period. But again, it felt, because we were so separated from the media, we weren't a part of it. It was present, but I don't feel like it was as present as it is now. Like you would hear about like, oh, this celebrity got Botox, and you'd be like, okay, that's because they're a celebrity, like whatever, not for me. Like that's just not something. I never in a million years thought that like myself or anyone I knew would ever get plastic surgery. Like that just wasn't something for like us people. And now, especially in Korea, like you'd be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't had Botox. And they're like normal people in your life, or like influencers that feel like they're in your life, but I've never met you kind of thing. So I just feel like the pressures are much more intimate. They're coming from people who feel like your friends or your peers instead of celebrities and people who feel like separated from you, if that makes sense. I'm so glad that we really didn't have social media. And again, like if we did have social media, it was with our friends. Like it was people I knew. Like, I mean, I've talked about it on my book channel with my writing, but I used to write and just post every shitty little thing on Tumblr without a care in the world, because who reads my Tumblr except for like the handful of my friends? Now I'm so scared to even try posting my writing, which I used to love, just because of the fear of being perceived, the fear of being judged, the fear of it reaching so many people, and people who like don't know me, don't care about me. I feel like that was another thing of like, the people who saw you were people who either knew you or cared about you. And now we really care about people who we've never met, we've never spoken to. So like for me, for example, when I posted about it, I think last year, when I was talking about how I had a moment where I thought about getting Botox because I'm aging, you know, and I realized that anyone whose opinion I should care about, anyone who's getting actually close enough to my face, if you're getting this close to my face, it's because I care about you, right? You're in my life, you're a real human being. They don't care if I have wrinkles. So the only reason I would get Botox is because I care about what people I don't know think about me. And that's not, again, we've talked about it, something your brain isn't supposed to be able to handle at this amount, right? So yeah, I feel like we are constantly seeing ourselves in the frame of like being witnessed, being perceived by an obscene amount of people, when it used to be like, oh, you know, I wish I didn't have this pimple because I sit next to this cute person in Spanish class. And now it's like, oh, I wish I didn't have this pimple because now I can't post my TikTok and potentially the entire world will see it. You're just like, we're dealing with different sized stages to perform on. Literally, like to perform your teenage years. And if it isn't clear, I'm mostly talking about like teenage dumb
in the early 2000s. Like, we performed for a smaller crowd, if that makes sense. I've been seeing a rise of like faceless accounts, and I think that that's really great. I'm seeing a rise in like Substack and newsletters and like written stuff, things that aren't about your physical being. I think that a lot of people are creating platforms based off of their physical appearance, and that's not good for them and it's not good for their audience. And so yeah, I just really wish that Gen Z could live less seen. I wish you could be on the side stage. I wish you could be playing a tiny little dark jazz club, partially obscured, and people can only hear your like saucy little voice. But instead you're kind of forced to play like the main stage of a giant festival where it's just a mass of people you can't even see. I'm going too far with the metaphor, okay? The chocolate is hitting me. But yeah, I just wish that upon you, that you're perceived less, that you're able to make mistakes, you're able to say a wrong word and someone kindly tell you you're wrong and move forward, things like that. Like, I feel like everything is just spotlight all the time, and that's not good. So yeah, a quiet offline teenage experience was really, really good for me, at least. Let's finish our puppy chow. All right, final step, powdered sugar. This is what it looks like. Oh, it doesn't look good. Puppy chow. It's just like melted chocolate and peanut butter on a crispy cereal with powdered sugar. Mmm. So good. So good. Okay, I'm seconds away from a sugar crash. That was, yeah, puppy chow hits. But last but not least in this video, first of all, I have a book that I need to finish. I feel like, and it was kind of touched on with like the millennials who chimed in, like we just spent more time doing things. Like, I listen to music now, but I listened to music more as a kid. Like, and I would, like I said, just sit in my room, just stare out my window and come up with scenarios. I kid you not, every day I spent at least 2 hours on my swing set, just swinging and listening to music, playing a movie in my head. I actually just found this. I listen to a lot of the playlists that are music, but it sounds like it's coming from the other room. And I just found this one. You're in a bathroom at a 2016 summer party. And so it's just like a bathroom, and then they play the music so it sounds, I would absolutely, if this existed when I was a kid, I would absolutely have listened to this and just been so moody, laying on the ground in my room, just like imagining me being at a party. Instead of, I never partied. So like, instead of being at a party, I would just imagine myself at a party. You would just, yeah, I felt like we were forced to be so creative and in our minds a lot. And because we were so bored, we really relied on each other. I think that social media, ironically, lets us be really self-sufficient. Like, you can entertain yourself by just observing other people's creations on social media, right? When we were kids, we had to entertain ourselves by going out and finding other people to entertain us. So like hanging out with our friends, going to a movie, doing something, like riding our bike. We had to do something. We couldn't just kind of like sit and let the entertainment be in the palm of our hand. Yeah, I think that is something that we definitely like relied on each other a lot more for just like human connection. Like I said earlier in the video, I feel like we just did a lot of loitering, and that is not Gen Z's and social media's fault, by the way. Like, you guys aren't allowed to loiter. like we would go to the mall. Well, we weren't really mall kids, but like we would go to the beach and just like hang out on the beach. And I feel like if we did that now, cops would come and be like, what are you doing? I saw that like in the US at least, like Target is cracking down on like if teens can come in, and like, really, you guys have a lack of a third space, and that's not your fault. We were just allowed to like sit and do nothing, and it wasn't seen as like suspicious. But I feel like everything that teenagers do now is suspicious. I understand teenagers are crazy by definition, like your hormones are wackadoodle, but it doesn't mean that we need to punish you for it. We just need to give you a safe space to be teens. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm biased. Like, I really liked how I grew up, but there are so many positives for how Gen Z is growing up. So I think that, you know, we live with the hands that were dealt, I guess. And yeah, like I said, I really admire the youths and kind of how they're navigating it. So yeah, the only thing I would say is stop using fucking ChatGPT to do your homework. Do it yourself. So that's my only request, please. Now I am going to edit this, and I think I'm gonna watch, I've been watching Gilmore Girls while I have breakfast. Okay, what am I trying to, we don't have 10 things I hate about you, so what can I watch instead? Twilight. Yeah, sorry guys. I am who I am. I'm sorry that this ended up being more of like a Q&A and me just talking at you, but I find it quite fascinating to kind of think about how I grew up and how much I have changed. I'm still very much now like quite dependent on technology that I didn't grow up with. So yeah, it's just interesting to kind of reflect on that. And I'd love to hear from you guys and how growing up was like for you, regardless of which generation you were in. So very excited for this comment section. I will catch you later. Once again, thank you so much to Surfshark VPN. I will have all that information in the description box, but you can go to surfshark.com/caricakes to get 4 extra months of Surfshark for you. Keep yourself safe in this new digital age. Surfshark VPN will do that for you. So I'm logging off. Let me know if you have any other topics I should chat about, because I feel like you guys give such interesting things to kind of muse over. So if you ever have things you want to talk about on this channel, let me know. Oh my gosh, the thunder is rolling in. So I'm gonna go. Ooh, perfect. Perfect time for a baseball game, don't you think? I'm gonna go watch my movie now. See you later, okay? Bye.